So, was Kung Fu Panda 4 good? Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was not at all. And while it obviously wasn't for the bad and bountiful reasons that Megamind 2 had, the honest and true experience of this film was just me and my buddies trying to make as many TF2 references as possible before our lungs blew out from the quantity of laughter we were trying to hold in. And trust me, there was a lot of easy ones to make.
Among Us.
So let's just get my praises out of the way because yes, I don't have very much for the film, but it still deserves praises regardless because it does have some great work in some areas. The animation is genuinely beyond stunning at times and uses a good 2 to 3 color palette to a good degree, in which a few scenes will look very beautiful. Honestly, it's quite reminiscent of Kung Fu Panda 2 with its white, black, and red color scheme in those flashbacks. The movie has a very good art direction. The action scenes are a bit bizarre and creative in some areas that I really do enjoy. They may get a little weird sometimes, like how 2 rabbit kids literally just attach to Poe's nipples, but we'll just kind of ignore that for the time being. Yeah, that happens, and I'm not going to elaborate any further on that. You couldn't pay me to. I will say, none of the animation really surprised me as much as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but overall it is a genuinely beautiful film full of eye candy that will make kids happy. I also like how they made the new character Jen not overtake the entire story and make a complete buffoon out of Poe like so many other franchises have. Honestly, I shouldn't have to praise a film for not doing this, but nowadays, Hollywood sucks ass, and any straying away from the path is literally just an improvement, no matter how small or obvious it may be. I kinda like Poe's dad's B-plot they had going. Okay, honestly, I'm just struggling to find anything else to show praise for in this movie because the entire movie is just skin deep, and what you see is what you get. The film is genuinely really pretty, but it has no substance to it. Even the main villain is so poorly motivated, it shocks and pisses me off. The best way to sum this entire movie up in my feelings is imagine you pay $100 for a beautiful fancy steak from a 5-star restaurant, right? It's nice 16 ounces, you know, everything like that. It comes out looking beautiful, gold shaving, searing grill marks, a little bit of basil or whatever the fuck those stupid little leafy shit they put on top is. Absolutely amazing to the eyes. Now imagine cutting into it and seeing not a beautiful cook, but it's fucking raw. Bleeding raw. Not only that, the majority of the meat is just fat. Not the melty tasty stuff, it's just the chewy disgusting stuff. The movie looks great and would continue to look so, but the second you cut in for the experience, it leaves you entirely disappointed. That's all this movie was to me, a disappointment. Let's get into everything I hate about this movie because that list far extends what I liked about it. The main villain fucking sucks. I can tell you with almost a complete certainty that there was little to no time put into this villain compared to the others throughout the series. Don't get me wrong, love the concept, fucking hate the execution. So the main villain, the big bad, well, her motivation for being an evil wretch that took over an entire city and oppresses thousands is she wasn't allowed to learn Kung Fu. And I struggle to even say aloud because all I remember her elaborating on is others thought she was too weak to learn. That's really it though. She's evil because no learn Kung Fu. She doesn't even have a name like the other 3 big bads of the Kung Fu Panda universe. She's just named fucking Chameleon. And all of that alone should already tell you the quality and care that actually went into this character. Also, I just hate how one of her powers was displayed in this movie because it's just so fucking stupid and contrived sounding. And no, it's not the shape-shifting one because that actually was interesting. It's the fact that she can just steal Kung Fu moves because of her tongue. There's not really much of a build-up or prior scenes that just establish this power besides one random quick comment about it. It's just the second she opens the spirit realm, she just starts using it. Stabby, you know, bullshit like that. And that just kind of raises the question of, like, why wouldn't she use this before if she has this power and she's frustrated because she doesn't know fucking Kung Fu? It just doesn't make sense. Like, at least in the beginning of the movie, like, showing a scene of her actually fucking using it would actually make this feel a lot more concrete and, like, useful rather than just randomly shoved in and contrived bullshit. I mean, look at Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2. That cannon constantly comes out. It is a motif of him, and it is always there in the back of your mind knowing he can be using it. But a power this strong just never being used till like the last 10 minutes of the movie is fucking insane for me. Even Kai from the 3rd movie at least establishes his power and uses it prominently to a point that would make sense. This is just kind of almost entirely out of nowhere and it's like a little annoying. But honestly, that's just me being critical because this villain just feels like a mashup between Lord Shen and Kai, but with none of the flavor or character they brought to the table. Just a sentient plank of wood who had a few words written on her. Overall, 1 of 10 villain, please rewrite this shit. Poe's quest is completely pointless and makes no sense for his age. So this movie takes place around the ending of the 3rd movie, obviously not years or decades after because nothing's really changed, and Poe still looks quite young as in the Google answer also says he's 20-ish, so there's your age range. Now, With that knowledge, what if I told you his entire quest for this movie is to find a new dragon warrior and retire? May I mind you, retire in his fucking 20s. Who wrote this? Guys, you made Puss in Boots last year. How are you messing up so bad now? It's not like Shifu's out of the picture too, though. He's still hanging around and giving advice and bullshit like that. He's still the same views as the first 3 other movies. Nothing actually has changed, but I guess we're just gonna say it, fuck it all to logic, so at least that's consistent. And listen, you can make 1,000 excuses for the logic behind this, and try to say this is actually the writers pulling some big brain move. But with the effort they put into the main villain, do you think even for a second that they thought this quest out, like, at all? I'd be surprised if you answered yes. Poe's successor just feels very plain and inconsistent. So, Poe's successor is this fox named Jen, who he originally captures after she attempts to steal from the Jade Palace. She's locked up, she exposition dumps the big bad onto Poe, and then she leads him to the big bad. Now, to make sure you know I actually watched this movie, yes, I know she backstabs him later, so some deception would make sense. Regardless, this still doesn't make her characterization in this movie make much sense beyond that. So, to sum it up very briefly, Jen works for the big bad, and she needs his staff to open a spirit realm to steal Kung Fu powers and shit. So, Jen tricks Poe into a very specific trap where he must give her the staff to give to the big bad, because that's how the staff works. I don't know, I don't really care. But Jen throughout this movie just immediately trusts Poe multiple times for no fucking reason at all. Even though she's supposed to have like this massive, like, terrible backstory where she grew up on the streets all alone and she can't trust anybody and all that shit, she just immediately trusts Poe. Don't get me wrong, they tried to add some skepticism in her because there was a point in the movie where Poe offered her half a cookie and she immediately just started going schizo about it and acting like he was gonna poison her or some fucking shit. But that's what she got skeptical about. Half a cookie, not all the other shit they do in the movie. Now look, you can just take that all with a grain of salt if you will. As listen, I know I'm not being very specific about the circumstances, and that is because she is so fucking forgettable. Despite her being on screen with Poe for most of the movie, she really doesn't stand out to me at all. It makes 90% of her interactions lost in my subconscious. She is just very generic. It's a thief turned good guy, and that's about it. It's almost like DreamWorks had an entire movie based on this idea. But who knows? I don't really care. She's just as interesting as the villain of the movie, and her characteristics go a little deeper than hers, but not by much. She's just way too easy to persuade into doing the right thing, and it's just doesn't feel like she has anything to her character, despite the movie actually attempting to flesh her out with a backstory that goes beyond the length of 2 sentences. She's just forgettable and boring. That's it. I'm a bit sorry that I couldn't have gone much deeper, but I just don't feel like rewatching the entire goddamn film for something that I would have remembered had the character actually been interesting at all. A small thing that really annoyed me just a little bit, but I'm going to rant about regardless because why the fuck not? In the ending, I don't like how Poe's rivals just don't give a shit about him at all. They just kind of all fuck off to the spirit realm willingly with no combative nature towards him. Lord Shen and Kai don't care at all, even though last I checked, Shen is a fucking lunatic who committed genocide against all of Poe's people, but he beats one lizard bitch and he just bows to him now. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, and Kai. Don't get me started about Kai. So I'm just to expect that Kai of all people is going to be complacent with going back to the spirit realm after the entirety of the 3rd movie was him trying to escape it and take over. Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's not like it's the second chance to try over again because he's escaped the realm again. Tai Lung, they at least attempted to give like an actual reason why he'd be complacent because he actually does grow a tiny bit over this movie and learns to respect Poe or some shit, which I really don't care about. But at least there was a fucking attempt. But now that I think about it, there's really not much else to talk about because as horrible as the Megamind sequel was, at least that was something that I could talk about and it didn't actively bore me with its story. So let's just wrap this up already. Kung Fu Panda 4 was a visually stunning movie with no writing passion or fresh ideas behind it. It is in its best quality when you haven't seen it, and it only diminishes the further and longer you watch it. It's fun at times, but it ultimately feels soulless. It's like the magic from the first 2, if you want to include it, 3 movies was gone. It just feels like any other kids movie in the sense its prequels didn't, and only serves to water down the remainder of the storyline. Overall, it just feels like a heavily unearned sequel that will likely be forgotten because that's all it is. Forgettable.